one, fight!
What's going on, everybody, in BW Sports One World? This is your boy DaLion, and we are here with another episode of Combat Zone, powered by Elite Performance. That's right, Zach Dirr, 765-499-1005. When the dream of elite fitness becomes a reality, you check him out. I promise you, you will not be disappointed as well. Rogue Energy Drink. That's right. It is the official pre-workout drink of BW Sports One in Elite Performance. Use BW Sports One as the promo code to get 10% off your next purchase at rogueenergy.com. Today, we have the hammer himself, Mr. Josh Burns, with us today. Josh, how we doing, sir? Thank you for joining me.
Doing good, brother. Doing good. Appreciate you.
Good. Thank you. No, I appreciate you coming on. You know, I'm popping your cherry today on Combat Zone. Appreciate you coming on. Give BW Sports One World a little insight of the background of, you know, kind of your background in MMA to bare knuckle and any other combat sports that you've been involved in.
Oh, shoot. So, I mean, I've been fighting since I was like 5. So, started boxing. So, got a couple gold gloves, well, a couple silver gloves, then a few golden gloves, and then wrestled in college, high school, college, and went into MMA, got into Bellator, more of a hobby, I would say, because it was just something fun to do. But I was offered to fight bare knuckle by Dave Feldman about 7 years ago. I was actually one of his first contracted fighters, and obviously he ran into some road bumps, and I decided to not sit idle for a year, and I jumped over to the UK, spent about 4.5 years there, getting my feet wet, and fell in love with the sport. It wasn't really a hobby, pretty much fell in love with it. So became a way of life, and came back to Dave here, oh gosh, about 2 years ago now, and we are where we are.
We are where we are. You're standing on the top side of that heavyweight division right now. Kind of give me a little insight on, what your thoughts were to this bare knuckle fighting once you were actually approached by it, once you started seeing it, coming from boxing and MMA and wrestling, obviously. What were your thoughts at first on bare knuckle?
Well, my first initial thoughts were I was nervous that I'd break my hand because I broke my hands multiple times in MMA and in boxing, and was pretty much figured like, ah, man, this might be like a career ender if it goes south per se. So, and once I did it, obviously all that went out the door because I never broke my hand, and I've been doing it now almost 6.5 years, and haven't broken a hand, haven't hurt one. So I dig it.
That's good. That's good. I mean, it's always good to keep your extremities safe. Now,
Right.
speaking of, the transition from boxing with gloves to MMA with gloves, smaller gloves, obviously, but still padding on the knuckles and the hand, to bare knuckle. Everybody says bare knuckle fighting is safer for the fighter, not necessarily for the hands themselves, but for the fighter in the head and the concussions and stuff like that. Where do you sit on that? I mean, as a fighter yourself, where do you come at on that realm?
Well, to me, it's pretty common sense. I mean, I got my master's in exercise physiology. So as far as the repetitive blows and the concussions that you may receive, you don't become as concussed with bare knuckle because there's a lot of superficial wounds, contusions, things like that. But you're not taking the repetitive blows that you would with a glove, where their tools are protected. So if you throw a goofy punch from outside, weird things, they don't break, so you can continue to throw. With bare knuckle, if you are, let's just say uncalculated, you can blow your hand out pretty quick and lose a tool. So you got to be a lot smarter. So
And
I don't believe it's, yeah, I believe it's a lot safer, to be honest with you. My last fight's perfect proof of it. I mean, I've never been buzzed in my life, and I've never been dropped. And I had a real, just pretty much shit the bed that night and came out flat. Didn't throw, just walked into, Frank Tate's hands. And I mean, that man's a big, powerful guy. And even myself, who's got I consider myself to have a brick for a head. And by the third round, just taking repetitive right hands, I had seen the mat a couple times. My face was tore up pretty good. I had a big contusion and hematoma on the back of my left side of my face. And that's when I pretty much looked at the ref and was just like, it's just not my night. If I keep going, I'm probably going to get hurt, because I kept getting up, and I'm just like, man, it's just not my night. And that's usually when you're going to get hurt, is if you keep going. So that's why they considered it a verbal, retirement by the red corner. So just to be honest.
hey, I like honesty, man. And
Yeah.
if you ever watch, I'm a pretty honest guy, and I'm pretty blunt and straightforward.
Right. Right.
Um, Question on that real quick before we jump into the last couple bare knuckle fights that you want to, because I want to discuss those. Going
Hmm.
back to your MMA career, I noticed that in Bellator you were putting up. I mean, before Bellator you were putting up some good stout wins. When you get to Bellator, they're putting you up against some pretty big beasts, and one of the names that stuck out to me was Bobby Lashley, and that to me, just on paper and looks themselves, because that you said something about you having a brick as a head, dude. You're built like a brick shit house all over. So I don't think it's just your head. That's a brick house. But was Bobby Lashley your toughest opponent in MMA, or was there somebody else that you can elaborate on?
Yeah, no, Bobby Lashley is one of the weaker opponents I've ever fought. It was just I think I was, limelighted. The thing with Bellator is I fought Eric Prindle. We were both 6-1, and we were both coming up. No one would fight either one of us, and we're friends. We're like brothers, and we just agreed to stay on our feet and bang. And we fought that fight, and I was winning the fight. And they stopped in the third because of cut on my left eye. Yeah, you can't get hit by him. And so I had lost that fight. We both went into the heavyweight tournament, and just they threw the toughest guys at me on short notice. And Bobby Lashley, yeah, he's a good dude, but if you watch the fight, I've never been taken down in my career. He's the first guy ever took me down. It wasn't because he shot in and took me down. It was because I threw a knee, and it was his corner saying to throw a knee, and I thought it was my corner. So, anyways, knee tap down my back. He spent 4.5 minutes on my back, and he had two arms on my one arm. He couldn't even move he could not move my one arm with both his arms. And that was the one thing I was just in shock with. I was just like, wow, this guy's, he looks big and strong, but he's not. He's pretty weak.
Mhm.
And that's not disrespect. It's just truth.
Right.
But the problem is when you let someone work on your arm for 4.5 minutes. I got up and I had no left arm, I had no jab.
Right.
And of course, Dan Mergalotti gave me shit because he was the ref, and I had him on my back. But somehow I got on my back in the second round, and Dan's like, Josh, you got to get up. And I just stood up immediately. And of course, Bobby's like, oh, it starts to fall back, hooks my neck just so he didn't fall. And I'm thinking it's a rear naked, and I tap to it. And then, of course, Dan, to this day, Dan gives me shit. He's like, bro, why did you tap? Like, I would have never tapped. So it is what it is. But yeah, I would say probably my toughest fight would have been Eric Prendel. The hardest puncher that I've ever faced would be Raphael Butler. Raphael Butler hit like a freaking freight train. But of course, he was a top tier boxer, fought Chris Arreola and all those guys, up in the WBC. So yeah, I'd say those are probably like toughest guys. So as far as I can remember.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of, and I don't mean to keep going back to, but with the Bobby Lashley fight, with somebody that big, and when you're saying is the one of the most, one of the weakest opponents you fought,
Yeah.
does that physique, is that one of the reasons? Well, not one of the reasons, because we obviously know, WWF or WWE now,
Mhm.
star, I should say. There is a difference in the sports between MMA and wrestling, but there's been a lot of crossovers in the past few years. Is that a major problem with the wrestlers, professional wrestlers coming into MMA, with that physique, not using the muscles the same way as they do in wrestling compared to when they're in a ring or a cage? And, what do you see as far as the crossover there?
Well, I have a couple friends that actually wrestle professionally at a pretty high level, and the requirements on wrestlers is a lot different than a fighter. There's a different functionality wise,
Right.
and they're strong, they're athletic. I mean, they're probably some of the best athletes you'll find in life. And the problem with that is fighting is not about athleticism, So, I mean, you can take a look at, Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is probably not the most athletic guy in the world, but he can beat the tar out of you. And, being a fighter is completely different than being an athlete. So, now don't get me wrong, sometimes being an athlete can be an assist,
Right.
when you do fight, but you have to fight. So, Bobby Lashley, the first thing that, like I said, when we got together is we tied up and I just grabbed his elbows and I just shoved his arms touched each other. And I just felt a lot more dominant in that, the clinch. And I was like, holy shit. Like that's what he thought in my head. I was like, I'm a lot stronger than this guy. Like that was the first thing that went through my head. So it was more of a shell shock, you know what I'm saying? So it's just different. I think the requirements from, that stuff is different than the requirements for fighting. And yeah, you can utilize them, or as long as you properly utilize them, take them to fighting, you're going to do well. But it's just a complete different requirement. Like if us fighters tried to go do what they do, I don't think
Right.
people realize how hard the crap that they do is. It's athletic, it's gymnastics, it's crazy stuff. But at the same time, they're not getting hit in the head for real. It's
Right.
not repetitive blows to the head and things like that. So hopefully that answers.
Yep. Well, so I'm going to take us back to one of the first times you and I talked in Messenger.
Okay.
I believe that, I said something, a little joke, jabbing Ohio State. Do you
Oh
recall
God.
this? Do you recall this
Yeah.
conversation?
Yeah. Yeah.
And at first, I really thought, man, he is going to block me. Shit, I probably shouldn't have said that. But, you took it like a champ, and I love it. One of my partners here at the network is a big Go Blue Michigan fan. You living up around the Ann Arbor, Detroit area, I'm sure get shit all the time when you tell them where you went to college and who you root for. But I'm not going to say the joke here. I'll be nice. I said it once, and you didn't block me, so I'm not really going to push my limits on that. But I just want everybody to know that Ohio State wrestling is one of the best in the country.
Yeah.
The Big Ten is
Big Ten. Yeah.
really good in wrestling when you look at Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State, and others. In your collegiate career in wrestling, what what's different between your grade school, high school wrestling and your college career wrestling, and then take it a step farther? What did you bring from that helps you even nowadays in bare knuckle fighting?
Well, you learn high school's just it's intense, as a high schooler, but colleges is completely different, as far as the finish. You finish a lot hard. Everything's a lot hard. Everything's harder. You do everything more. The intensity is times 100. So, and that's why a lot of guys don't excel. They might be good in high school and they come to college and they fall flat because the intensity is completely different. It's not about, being, as I would always call it, the golden boys. You got golden boys on every team. You got coaches take care of and make it easier. College isn't like that. They don't give a shit. They're going to throw you in the fire, and then they're going to throw you in there again just to make sure that you're ready to roll. So as far as that, it's the mental fortitude that you have moving forward with fighting, because bare knuckle, out of everything, bare knuckle is about heart. Like number one, I've said it to a lot of people, it's all about heart. So, and then second would be your ability, your fighting ability. And people are like, oh, that's crazy. No, it's not crazy, because at the end of the day, if you take my last fight into consideration, I'd never been knocked on my ass, and I got knocked on my ass by a big man. And credit to him. And I just kept getting up. It wasn't even a thought process. But by the third round is when it finally clicked. And I'm just like, look, dude, it's just, and I'm talking to myself, it's just like, it's just not my night. I'm literally not throwing. I'm not, things are not going the way I envision them. And if I keep going, I'm probably gonna get hurt. So up until that third round, the reason I just kept getting up and forging forward is probably a lot to do with that mental toughness that you get in wrestling. Wrestling, in my opinion, is one of the toughest sports. And it's funny, you don't say guys play football and football makes them better at wrestling. They always say, hey, wrestle, and it'll make you a better football player. Wrestling's, I believe, one of the toughest sports in the world. And it's not even a biased statement. It's just the truth. So And I always joke and say water polo is probably another tough sport that I've participated in where it just takes strong mental fortitude and you just got to have that will. So, those
Definitely.
two things.
Definitely. Now, kind of going back to the fight before the tape fight,
Mm,
we're talking about Chris Sorrow fight. You
okay.
can't. There was two totally different fighters when you looked at Josh Burns between that fight and the last fight.
Yeah.
You went out there. There was obviously animosity between the two of you guys, or
Right.
more one sided than the other. But you know that better than I do, and if you can elaborate on that, great. But I noticed at the end of the fight when you knocked him out, you said some polite words in his ear before. I believe it was Dan Margliata was the ref
Yeah.
on that one. Pulled
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
out and said, get the fuck away.
Yeah.
What was the difference in between that fight and this last fight, mentally, physically, for you?
Technically, I was mentally in a better place and physically in a better place this last fight with Tate than I was with Sorrow. Chris and I, we're friends now, but we had our issue at the time, and so it obviously drew, it definitely drove the fight mentally for me. Um, with Chris, I started slow as well. So if you watch that fight, the first round, I was very slow.
Hmm.
I'm more of a reactive fighter. I've always been that way. Of course, I have a lot of firing, offensive firing power, but for some reason, I just don't jump the gun and do it. Which all my coaches since I started, they've all wanted me to, just be like a fucking tank right off the rip.
Right.
And when I fought in Europe, I don't know why, but I got comfortable a couple times, and I they took it down, but there's a couple of those fights out there that are, what, some of them are on my social media. You can see them where I'm a little more offensive. And as far as, with Chris, I was slow. The first round I was slow. But I was still moving,
Hmm.
reactive, and still throwing. With the Tate fight, I was pretty flat and can't even tell you why. Sometimes it happens, just bad night. So,
Gotcha. So
but
really quick, what did cause the animosity between you and Chris to begin with?
we just had some personal bickering that took him outside the ring,
Gotcha.
and I'll just leave it at that because we're friends now. I mean, the guy, he's apologized to me. I've apologized to him, and we're probably gonna end up training. I'm gonna bring him down here to train because he was really honestly beating the shit out of Kakar. That first fight, the fight on my card, and then he got clipped.
Mhm.
So, but he had a tough weight cut, and people don't know that. So, and this is my world. So
Right.
we talked. We've been talking, last couple of weeks, and I think we're gonna bring him down here to Detroit. And as long as we're, have a fight coming up roughly around the same time, uh, we will. I'm gonna help get him ready. Because the guy looks great when he punches pads and gloves, or pads and bags. But when he gets in a fight, he loops stuff. And I just told him, I'm like, look, you're fighting at 60%, which is the truth. I said to my coaches that when we got out of fight scene, and I've told Chris the same thing, fighting game is a lot about luck too. It's whoever gets off first, whoever gets that first punch, and that really connects. And, Chris probably fighting at about 60% because the way he loops punches. If he were to punch down the middle, the guy's strong as shit. So if he were to punch down the middle, I really don't see too many 205ers, being able to stand up to it. So, and same with me, when we got done with my fight, I told coach as well, I was like, thank God he wasn't punching down the middle because that first round, man, I was, Coleman told me the same thing. You listen in between rounds, you get really who's pissed. He's like my big brother, so he's like, "What are you fucking doing, JB? Throw your hands." So yeah, but yeah, it is what it is. It's in the past. Water under the bridge, and we got past it. Like I said, it was my night that night, and with Tate, it wasn't my night. So now we're getting ready, and looks like we'll be fighting in September.
Okay. Yeah, because we just read that Alabama Commission has put you on suspension until I believe it said August 28th. Now,
Right.
with that, obviously you were not knocked out. However, it is a mandatory 30-day suspension, even on a win,
Right.
just to make sure everybody's good and healthy. Now, with you, I'm sure that they looked at, you kind of said, okay, just again, like you said, not my night. It's not going good. I don't want to get injured any more than I am. Let's just call it. So maybe
Right.
that's why the commission did it the way they did. Who knows? Uh,
Yeah. Who knows? I don't
right.
know. I know that. I mean, I had to go to the ER afterwards, got a CT scan. Everything was fine. It was just contusions and, superficial, wounds. So, but I was concussed pretty good though. I mean, old boy cracked him pretty damn good. I mean, I wasn't moving. I was sitting there just catching his damn big ass lunchbox hands. And, it took a toll. It definitely took a toll.
Well, like you said, you don't even know why you were like that, but that was the main difference that I could see between the Sorrow fight and the Tate fight was just the movement, not necessarily, the hand throwing itself, but it was more so the moving. And like you said, you were kind of just caught on your heels for the most part. And
Yeah.
I think if you would have moved it, and obviously you're the fighter, I'm just a spectator here, but if you would have kept that movement going, I think you would have given him a lot more issues. Being a big guy like he is, I think with your movement and your quickness that we've seen numerous times, I think it could have been a different story. Now, fighting Frank Tate in the Alabama state where he played football, the crowd's there obviously for him. How did that feel? Walking into quote unquote his backyard.
I mean, I spent 5 years in Europe, being American in a European scene. So I've been an underdog for over 5 years. So, but the electricity in that arena that night was something I've never experienced. Even in Bellator, it don't matter. And it probably only 5,000 people, I think, at this venue. And my God, when he came out to Sweet Alabama, I did my goofy little walk. I was just having fun. But he came out to Sweet Alabama, which I was going to, but I'm like, you know what? Somebody else is probably going to do that. So I'll just do something else. So, and I'm dancing to it. It's cool, man. Have a good time. But it was so loud. It was deafening. It like hurt your ears. It was so loud. And, you know, don't know if that played a role in me being flat, but man, I just remember, God damn, I think just thinking in my head, like these folks are loud. Like it's loud, loud. And, we must have had an amateur ref in there because the ref was pretty much, like, and I, me, man, I ain't gonna pull punches. The dude was a joke. Yeah, there was a push down in the first round. He called a knockdown, and I'm sitting there arguing with him, like, bro, are you fucking dumb? Like, what's wrong with you? And then every time after a knockdown, he'd bring us back to the line to fight. That's not what you do.
Right.
You get up and you just fight. Like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing, bro? So, but I didn't have an argument with it because I was like, hey, give me an extra minute to walk up to it. But I remember thinking in my head, well, thank God I got this bum. Like, if I didn't have this bum, we have, this guy Tate would be all over me right now, And I mean, I even talked with Frank after the fight, and Frank said the same thing. He was just like, man, I expect you to do a lot more, to come at me, have angles. He goes, do your normal fighting style. He's like, I didn't know what to do. He goes, I was shocked when I touched you, and you didn't come back. You didn't do anything. You just stood there and kept walking. So,
Right.
Everyone has it, man. It's fight gaming. I've been in the game over 16 years, and you stay in this game long enough, you're gonna run into first. And that was the first time to be on my ass. And to be honest with you, it was actually pretty crazy because that was what was going through my mind. I fell on my ass. I'm like, what the fuck? Like that first knockdown, which wasn't a knockdown, it was push down, but he started counting, and that fucked with my head big time. I'm like,
Right.
I've never been knocked down in my life. What the fuck's this guy talking about? Like, I'm sitting there arguing with him, during the process, and then little did I know I was really gonna be knocking my ass a little later. But it's crazy how the world slows down, man. You become like, you can just have a conversation with yourself. You can see things, and every time he threw a right hand, I knew it was coming. You watch me. I'm watching. I'm like, okay, turn the head. Usually, I'll stuff it. I'll just bring my head into it and to break the hand. And bro,
Right.
it was just rough night, man. Rough night. Credit to him, but I really believe 9 out of 10 times I knocked Tate out. 9 out of 10 times. And this was that one time. And it is what it is. But you got to give credit where credit's due. The man did what he had to do to win, and now falls on me to come back and prove that I'm not a bum.
Well, I promise you, nobody over here at BW Sports One thinks Josh Burns is any type of bum at all. I mean, you did have an original matchup, and excuse me, I can't remember the guy's name right off the top of my head, but you had an original matchup, and it was like what, a week and a half, 2 weeks before the
Oh,
event, it was switched.
yeah, it was Dylan Kleckler, and it
There you go.
switched the week of the fight.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that Tate was already on the card, so he was already in camp and in shape,
Mhm.
as same as myself. And we were both, we're ready to go, but we both had to prepare for a new opponent.
Right.
And I think Tate had because he was going to fight Zach Kalmus, the guy that fought Bobo.
Yeah.
So watching that fight, yeah, he has heart, but I'm pretty sure Tate would have knocked him out in the first round. So, and I had Kleckler, and for some reason I thought Kleckler was a bigger dude, but when I met Kleckler in person, super nice guy, super good person, but he's small. Like he's my size, and I think I'm actually wider and thicker than he is. So I'm like, and when I met him at the arena, I'm like, oh, ain't that some shit? I'm like, yeah, now I'm fighting. He's the ranked number 2 guy, and I'm like, oh, dude, I could smash this dude. That's what's going through. I'm sure that's what he's thinking too. When he met me, like, oh, I can smash this guy. But I'm like, wow. But compared to Tate's a completely different size. And comparatively, when you watch him fight, when he fought Kleckler, that was a complete different Tate.
Yeah.
Very passive, wasn't throwing anything, was sitting back, and Kleckler moved, he ran, like he was a mobile target. He wouldn't go in and fight. So until round 2 or 3. So all dynamics involved and considered, is a different Frank Tate. Like, so maybe that as well kind of caught me off guard that he was actually punching down the middle. He wasn't looping shit, and he wasn't backing away. So yeah, that's about it.
How different in fighting bare knuckle style than not necessarily MMA, but more so boxing? How different is it to be on the offensive with open, bare fists?
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask that, because if you see my fights, like
Your coaches are asking me to say this, I guess.
yeah. To me, it's no different. To me, I try to be as technical as possible, so I try to punch down the middle. Like I said, I've been blessed and not broke any hands. So for me, it's easier because you can hit somebody a lot easier, because you have different guards that work with gloves that don't work with bare knuckle, and a lot of guys that transition. No matter, I don't care who you are. At the end of the day, it takes years of practice to break that cycle. And like I said, I've been blessed. I've been doing this stuff now, what, 6.5 years. So very blessed in the fact that I've had the time and experience. And I fought some of the toughest dudes in the world over in the UK, and now I'm moving into some tough guys here in America. So on experience wise, I feel like I have the advantage. But it's just, you actually just got to go out there and capitalize, pull the trigger. But if you don't pull the trigger, I mean, you're going to be in trouble.
True.
So
So
yeah.
leaving the tape fight,
Yeah.
you got an L this time.
Yep.
The original fight was set for pretty much the number 1 contenders fight to take on the winner of the Beltran Shoemaker fight.
Right.
What is in your future? I mean, what is in your eyes right now? What is the first vision coming off this?
Well, I mean, obviously I'd like to fight Kleckler, but that's probably not going to happen now that, he's ranked number 2 and I'm coming off a loss. But you never know. I'm assuming it's just my assumption, but it makes sense, is that he gets the winner out of Joey and Sam. It's kind of funny. It's the second time this happened to me. Sam Shoemaker and I were supposed to fight 3 times. Whatever, it didn't happen. I can just tell you for a fact I never pulled out, not once. And shit didn't happen 3 times. And then he gets a gift and fights Bobo, and it's a fucking gift. And
So how many kids do you have, Josh?
I have 10.
I was gonna say your pullout game's not really good then.
No. My pull-out game is absolutely horrible compared to the rest of these fighters. I fought in Europe, what, 5 years, and only had 1 guy ever pull out, 1. So crazy, just a wild experience. So come here, and I have both guys I'm supposed to fight pull out. That's how I fought Sorrow. It's because fucking Sam pulled out. And then he gets a gift. Now he's fighting for the title. And then Kleckler is supposed to fight me. He pulls out the week of the fight, and then now he's going to get a title shot. So, Lord willing, I mean, I'd like to run it back with Kleckler, because I really believe in my heart, like, Kleckler, yeah, he's a great athlete. He's in shape, this and that. But now I can't say this anymore, but not Kleckler. Well, I've never been knocked out, but I have been stopped. So, but Kleckler's been clean knocked the fuck out. So, and that's what guys are pressure him. So, I believe that I'll do the same, and you saw how much it took for me to finally say, okay, Tate, I'm done. And
Yeah.
Kleckler never got touched when he fought Tate. Tate was just throwing like, and I've said it, and and you watch the commentary, and Kleckler's a super nice guy. We don't not get along, but he had said some things during commentary like, oh, he took him easy, or he thought he was. Like, bro, you're talking out your ass because this is not the same Tate that fought you, homie. And I took literally shots that he couldn't take. I guarantee you. And I took them on top of each other, for whatever it was, 3 rounds. And it is what it is. But I would like to fight Kleckler if that's possible. If not, then maybe the loser of Joey and Sam, because I'm 7-3. I'm still have the strongest force besides the champion in the heavyweight division. And the company's, pretty much said that to me. They're like, look, you're still in title contention. You're one fight away from it. So, uh realistically, it's just got to be the right fight. It's got to be the right fight. I can't do what all these other guys do, fight, that Zach Kalmus guy. He's a nice guy. These guys are warriors. I can't fight, a Zach Kalmus or something like that, or Jennings, or, the guys that all these other guys get to fight, these bums. And God bless them. I shouldn't say that because it makes it sound bad, because Kalmus had a lot of heart. But even if you have heart, like, there's a difference between being a solid fighter and having heart. So I can't take a guy who is just a good entertainer. I have to take a top rated guy, and I need to fight a top rated guy. So that's what we want to do. That's the plan, So at this point, we're looking at September, and now I know why, now I know why the BKFC is saying September and it can't be any earlier. It's because of the Alabama suspension. I didn't know that. So, but hey, it is what it is, and we're looking at September. And I mean, Lord willing, we get a top rated guy. I want to fight a top 5 guy, and get my number 4 spot back, and just prove that was just a hiccup.
Everybody has them in the game. Everybody's
Yeah.
gonna have a hiccup every once in a while, and it's part of it, man. Like you said, it happens. You shake it off, you stand back up, and you roll forward with the next. And you did say something that I will agree with. I think, and this is just me speculating again, I think your next matchup will be the loser of the Beltran Shoemaker match. I agree with you saying Kuckler will get the winner, and then I think you win that fight. I think you're in, let's say, January, February of next year, you're in contention for that title shot again, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's ideal. That would be, perfect. And the greatest thing would be, and I'll be honest with you now, I would love to fight. This is putting bad juju on people, but I'd like to fight Sam. That's the first guy I'd like to knock the fuck out of. And so I think Joey does beat him. So can't run forever, motherfucker. And he's, I never pulled out of a fight. Well, we had 3 fights set, and I can just tell you this: it was never me. Not once. One time, the first time, was neither one of us. It was the state of Kansas. But after that, I never pulled out, not once. So let's just be real. So I want to fight. I'd like to fight Sam, and then ideally, if Kleckler can pull it off, get the fight Kleckler, knock him out. So that would be ideal. That'd be the storybook ending. You know what I'm saying? And then once I'm holding that belt, either get to run it back with Tate, or Mickey Terrell, or whoever at that time, AJ Arnold, one of those guys, at that point.
Well, it all sounds good in my book, sir. Now, I got a couple things that we've had fan requests for. First off, our mutual friend Ryan Jones. He has a question for you. He told me to ask, who has the bigger hammer, you or him? Now, I don't know if I want to ask this. I don't know if I even want to hear the answer, but I promised him I would ask you. What's the answer?
I love Ryan. He's a great guy, but I in all realms of life, wherever you want to take it, just trust me, I'm the bigger hammer. Believe that.
All right, there you go. Second one, I think you have somebody Twitter pated in the BKFC world, and her name is the wonderful, beautiful Britton O'Bannon. You are her, I think, hall pass. If Bo was ever to give a hall pass to his wife, I think that you are it. I love Britton and Bo. I think it's funny as hell watching them on their little escapades on Facebook and stuff like that. But I did want to tell you, she told me to tell you hi.
Okay, well, that is my heartthrob. So I love her. Hearts to her. So yeah, absolutely. I love them. They're great guys, a great couple, and they've always taken care of me and always been great friends. And Bo and I were in the back room for the Sorrow fight, and he was in my locker room, And we've now joked because it is if the last time I went first, I fought first, got a knockout, won, then Bo lost. Then this fight,
flip-flop.
he went first, got the knockout win. I went last, and I lost. So I just told him, I said, from now on, you're never allowed on my card. You can be in my corner, but you're not on my card anymore.
There you go.
So, yeah,
Dave,
so, yeah.
Nate, make sure you do not put these guys on the same card unless they're against each other. Now, that may happen eventually. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, you never know.
Really quick, rapid knockout. I do this segment with everybody for the first time. I'm going to ask 5 questions that have absolutely nothing to do with the fight world. Are you ready, sir?
Yes, sir.
Question number 1, favorite food? I mean, you and I both don't miss many meals, so I know you got some good food.
Let's just say I like Reese Cups.
Fair enough. Favorite hobby other than, the fight world?
I really love college football.
Do I have to ask who your team is?
No, you do not have
I
that.
know. It's that OSU, and I about slipped and told the joke again. I'm not crossing that line again, sir. Favorite music, whether that be a group, an individual, a genre, what is on your playlist?
So my favorite type of music is Jack Johnson and Tom Petty.
All right. Did you ever get to see Tom Petty in concert?
I did not. I've seen Jack. So Jack was actually a friend or a fan or whatever. I mean, I got every CD Jack Johnson has and all the shirts he had, and that was before my Bellator heavyweight tournament debut. And he had his handler, whatever it was, somebody. She sent me every CD he had, every shirt that he had, and I just had to send back a glove and a signed picture. So it was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Other than, and I think I know this answer now too, other than fighting, what's your favorite sport, either to participate in or to watch?
My favorite sport's boxing to this day. Love boxing. So,
well, here's the question, and I have a question for you. Who's going to win that fight, Joshua or Fury?
Fury.
I agree. I think that Joshua is definitely has worked his way to get that title shot. But I think Fury's on another level.
Yeah, I think AJ is just more athletic. He has athletic ability, which is great, but it's not going to do him well when he's getting hit in the face. I just think Fury's is just too much.
That's true. Fourth question. No, fifth question. Final one. Favorite role model, whether that be personal, growing up, whether that be somebody in the limelight that you admired when you were growing up and playing sports. Favorite role model, or give me both.
George Foreman.
George Foreman. Why?
He was actually friends with my pops when we lived in Southern California, and he's just a good man. He just had a great personality. Win, loss, draw. He was the epitome of a good sportsman, and it's taken me a long time to even come close to what he, how he was. I'll never achieve what he did, but he was just a great role model and a good person. And I love Mike Tyson, and I think Mike Tyson's a great individual. I think he was wild, little in his younger years, but I'd have to say, out of a role model, George Foreman's just the man, just period across the board. And he has smile. He's got a lot of kids like me, so
he does. It's that smile that he gave, like you said, win or lose, he's still showing them pearly whites.
There you go.
Josh Burns, everybody, bare knuckle fighting championships, heavyweight title contender still. Who do you got to shout out, sir? The floor is yours.
Well, just shout out obviously my team, my coaches, Mark Coleman, Victor Torres, my sponsors, which is Tiger Life Energy, Turp House Farms, the hydroponic shop, and Fire Savvy. Those are all my main sponsors that have stuck with me through this, and I appreciate that. And the fans, man. Without the fans and even the haters, without all those people, I wouldn't have a job. So I appreciate everybody, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you. Real quick, last question. I meant to ask this. I can't believe I wrote it down, didn't even ask it. How is it training under somebody such as Mark Coleman?
For me, man, I've known him for a long time, 17 years. So for me, it's like having my big brother, and it's more or less just, you just don't want to disappoint him. And, I didn't have him in my corner this last fight. And, there was a lot of dynamics that went into it that my coach and I sat over it last night, went over it. And there was a lot of things dynamic wise that were different for the fight. And we think, also not having Mark, he was sick. So he didn't want to get anybody sick. So that's why he stayed home. But, man, it's a different push. It's not even about technique or anything like that. It's just the overall heart and drive that he gives. He can walks in the room, you just get a feeling, and to have him in your corner and have him yelling at you if you're doing something wrong just moves you. And with my Chris Sarr fight, you saw that. I pretty much came out flat. I was really slow in that first round. I mean, I was still moving, but I was still slow. And you could hear him. He literally called out the exact combination that I was going to throw and knock him out. He just, let's go, JB. What the fuck you doing? Throw your hands, throw that jab, throw that big right. Let's go, And that's exactly what happened 20 seconds into the second round. So, it's a blessing to have him. And, a lot of people, I'm very blessed. A lot of people don't have that, and, he's always been a mentor and a big brother to me. And to have him there is no different than having your pop there. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. That's true. Josh the Hammer Burns, BKFC's heavyweight, on his way back up to that title contender spot. Josh, thank you again for being on Combat Zone with me. Check out all the happenings over at BWSPORTS1.com, and we will see you next time here on Combat Zone. Until then, we're out. Peace.